All right, crazy kids, part 2 of our presidential primaries and caucuses videos. I'm going to try really fast to get done in 2. I may have to do it in a third. Allow me to turn on my timer. All right, got the timer going. Okay, remember, by way of review, oh my gosh, don't get confused on this. There is a dividing line between the nomination game and the general election game, which is all about the Electoral College. This is all about winning enough delegates, in state primaries and caucuses to where you get a majority of delegates vote for you at the National Party Convention. That is what this is all about. Okay, so we talked about primaries and caucuses. I taught you the difference between a primary and a caucus. I taught you what are the first 2 that go and what are they. Iowa is a caucus, New Hampshire is a primary, and why the other 2 were added. Now we're going to talk about delegates. So let's go to delegates. Let's go to delegates. All right. So we wound up here. Okay, delegates. So this is why presidential primaries and caucuses are weird. You know, when you go, you vote on the ballot for a name, but what you're really doing is you're voting for the delegates of your state. If you're voting on the Republican ballots, you're voting for those delegates to go to the National Convention and vote for your candidate. That's the process. That's why Arizona calls it the presidential preference election, because you're not actually electing a person to be president. You're not even actually electing the nominee. The nominee is formally elected at the National Party Convention. Of course, we usually know what the answer is going to be, and so it's just a big, silly show. All right, one question. How many elected delegates does each state or territory send to the conventions? You've already noticed, because you've gone to the CNN primaries and caucuses page, that the Democrats have a lot more delegates than the Republicans. Why? Party rule. But here's what they have in common. They have different rules on how they decide how many delegates there are, but they both use a formula that rewards a state's size. Big states are going to send more delegates than small states, but also what party has won elections in the past. And how do you see that? Well, if there's a Republican governor, if there's a Republican state legislature, if there are Republican senators and congressmen in the House of Representatives, then that state is going to get a lot more delegates than a state that has gone Democrat in election after election, even if the sizes of the 2 states are equal. Make sense? All right. The delegates that get assigned to a particular candidate in the primaries and caucuses, those delegates are called pledged. They are called pledged. The Republicans call them bound, all right? Look, AP people, I get it. Democrats are pledged and superdelegates. It's the exact same thing with the Republicans, bound and unbound, all right? But I think AP is going to use the terms delegate, pledged, and super. Just understand that the concept is identical, all right? Okay, so pledged or bound delegates, those are the delegates that are elected, that must go to the party convention. And when they go to the party convention, they must vote for the candidate that won their state. All right? At least on the first ballot. Look, if all these delegates get to the National Convention and nobody has a majority of delegates on the first vote, then Ms. Roberts, then it is called a brokered convention. Do you know that there has never been a brokered convention since 1972?
No, I did not.
There has not. There has not. Now, neither Hillary or Obama in 2008 had a majority of pledged delegates. So the superdelegates had to step in and push her over half, right? Push her over half. This time with Biden and, I think it was the same for Bernie. I'm sorry, it was for Bernie also. Excuse me, it was also for Bernie. Clinton didn't have a majority of pledged delegates, so the superdelegates had to step in. Now, here's the interesting thing. So the Bernie people, even though it really didn't matter because, they were going to lose anyway, but they, by the way, AP kids, here's why they're going to talk on the AP exam about pledged and superdelegates versus bound and unbound delegates on the Republican side. Because the Democrats, 14% of their delegates are superdelegates, which is a big chunk, right? That's a big chunk.
That's a big chunk, yeah.
That's a big chunk. Republicans, it's about 8%. But the Bernie faction in the Democratic Party was all upset that Clinton won on the first ballot because of the superdelegates, that they got a rule passed for 2020 that says superdelegates can't vote on the first ballot in 2020.
Stuff's changing all the time. On the world history front, Bahrain signed an accord with Israel today.
Really?
Yep.
You know how
Bahrain.
they say Bahrain in Bahrain? Bahrain.
Oh, God.
Alrighty. Okay, moving on. So, everybody understand the difference between a pledged delegate and a super delegate. Now, who are these super delegates? They are party leaders. Like who? Well, if you're, our Democratic Senator, Kirsten Sinema, is going to be one. Martha McSally, our Republican Senator, will be one. Republican Congressman, Democratic Congressman, the governor, state party leaders. Those are the kind of people that will be super delegates. All right, and the thing is, they can vote however they want, for whoever they want, regardless of their state's vote totals in the primary or caucus, all right? So, technically, because neither Obama in 2008, Obama or Clinton got to a majority, the super delegates could have picked Clinton to be the candidate in 2008, but Obama had more votes than Clinton. Even though neither one got to half, Obama had more votes. So the theory is superdelegates will never step in and go against whoever has gotten the most votes in the primaries and caucuses, because that would just result in an outrage within the party, right? The outrage within the party. So read that. Make sense? All right. Delegate, this is huge. This AP, they can test you on this, all right? Delegate allocation. So let's say there is a state that has, and let's say it has 50 delegates, all right? And let's say they're Democrats. I'm going to make the math easy. I'm going to say 100 delegates. 100 delegates, and Clinton wins 60% of the vote, and Bernie wins 40% of the vote. Then she's going to get 60 delegates, and he is going to get 40 delegates. Now, the reason that's significant is, Clinton had a major win in the state, but she only got ahead by 20 delegates. And you need to win, to get over half. It takes forever to get over half the delegates when you're only getting an advantage of 10 or 15 or 4 or 5 delegates for each state. Makes sense? Go to the CNN 2016 election website and you'll see what I mean. All right? So, this is big. The Democrats say you states have to be awarded proportionally all the way through the process, from the first primary and caucus to the last primary and caucus. Which means if you have two fairly competitive candidates, it is going to take a long time, all the way into May or maybe even June, before somebody gets to half. In Clinton and Obama's case, they never got to half because there were other candidates that got some, right? And with Clinton and Bernie, I don't think she got, we're going to look at that. She didn't get to half. She needed the superdelegates, all right? She needed the superdelegates, all right? So, their process goes a long time. The Republicans do something, they say, all right, if you go early, if you go in February, then you have to go proportional, except for South Carolina. I don't know why, but South Carolina was winner take all. But the states, like the Super Tuesday states, on the first week of March, they all must award their delegates proportionally. But after the 15th, just for the Republicans, states that go after March 15th can award their delegates winner take all. So let's say this is Trump. I mean, here's what happens. Okay, so this is Trump. Trump wins 40%, and Rubio wins 30%. What do I have? And then Kasich wins 30%. So Trump, with 40% of the vote, gets how many delegates in a winner-take-all state? Trump gets, does he get 40? Does he get 40 delegates? No, he gets all 100 delegates. If you think about this just for a second, what that means is the Republicans are going to get to a nominee much quicker than the Democrats. Now, they're clever because nobody understands how this process works. Americans just don't understand. They look at the Democrats and they're like, oh wow, the Democrats are still fighting. They're still fighting. They're still fighting. Nobody's really behind their candidate. They're not unified. The Republicans are like, hey, look, we have our nominee by April. And so we look unified, like everybody voted for our candidate, when that really is not true. This is one of the reasons why, only 9 million Americans picked either Trump or Clinton to be their party's nominee, right? Crazy low number. AP people, you must know the consequence of the Republicans using winner-take-all primaries. You must know that. And that means they get to their nominee quicker, and they look like they're more unified than they really are. All right? Make sense? Okay, I'm going to post these. You guys can look through these rules. I haven't even looked into 2020 rules. This is, okay. This is important. Benefits of the primary caucus system. Well, look, people in Iowa and New Hampshire say, look, these candidates, they come here and they spend a lot of time. And we can meet them in coffee shops, like in groups of 10 or 12 people, and ask them questions like real life human beings. And they take their role very seriously. Iowa and New Hampshire know that they have a huge role to play in picking the president. So a very high percentage of people are involved. Although, go to the Iowa caucus in the CNN 2016 and 2020, go to Iowa and see how many people actually voted. The state's got over 3 million people, 3.1 million people. Look how many people actually voted in the caucuses. It's still low, still super low. But they say that they take their roles seriously. If it was just one giant primary nationwide, then people could get away with just having a bunch of TV commercials. It would always be party leaders that were backed by money that would be the only people that could participate in that. Which brings me to the second one. All right, now, they were called dark horses before Obama, all right? But Obama was a dark horse, right? What is a dark horse? A dark horse in a horse race is some horse that comes out of nowhere and wins the race that nobody was expecting, all right? In politics, a dark horse candidate is somebody with little money and little name recognition. You can be that kind of politician and go camp in Iowa for 6 months and go into 5,000 coffee shops and meet people one-on-one in small groups. And because the state is small and because voter participation is so small, you can make a big difference. by going out and having a good grassroots campaign, good retail politics, right? Knocking on doors, volunteers, lots of small meetings, and you can make a difference. Now, so you build your grassroots organization, lots of volunteers knocking on doors, lots of little meetings. If you come out of Iowa, look, what happens? You are a dark horse and you win Iowa. What is on the front page of every single newspaper and magazine in America the next day? A huge picture of you. Dark horse, Barack Obama wins Iowa, right? What happens? You are on every single news station being interviewed. On every single news station. They're all interviewing you. What happens? Money starts piling in. People get behind you. You come in, that's why you have to come in first or second in Iowa. What happens if you come in fourth in Iowa or fifth? Are you done? You know, Biden should have been done. He came in, I think he came in fourth in Iowa. He got clobbered in New Hampshire. What happened? The Democrats just got like all spooked out. They're like, wait a minute. We're all going to drop out. Because we realized that, I mean, I love the guy, Buttigieg, but you know, he's a 38-year-old gay guy who's been a mayor of a small town. Is he going to be elected? I know you guys all love Bernie. Bernie is an avowed socialist. Is America ready to elect a socialist? So the Democrats all panicked. And they just started voting for Biden in South Carolina. And then all the other ones dropped out. Because they're like, oh my God, we're going to elect a liberal that is going to lose the general election for us. Remember my, well, I haven't taught this to you yet, about what the party base looks like. I mean, the party base is liberal for the Democrats, right? And the party base is conservative for the Republicans. Who's voting in these primaries? The base, the hardcore base, right? Okay. This word vetting, you need to understand. If you vet somebody or something, you are taking a very close, hard look at them. It also applies to vice presidents. All right? The problems with the primary and caucus system. Well, you know what? If you lose Iowa and New Hampshire, you're done, right? You're out, basically, before anybody else has had a chance to vote. Man, I tell you what, McCain dropped out after South Carolina in 2000. I was so pissed at him. No, I'm sorry, he dropped out before South Carolina. He didn't even, okay, you know, it's like, wait a minute. I'm an Arizonan. I want to have a chance to vote for McCain over George Bush Jr. We've already talked about this. Iowa, and they have a huge role and they're not representative, right? And then with front loading, you know, Super Tuesday, I mean, what, I think in 2020, 15 states went? If you are some dark horse candidate, or you don't have the party apparatus behind you, and then you've got 15 states that go all at one time, man, you need money, and you need organization, and you need the party behind you to be successful. This, Super Tuesday, is when Hillary Clinton pulled ahead of Bernie Sanders on Super Tuesday. All right? Open this, take a look at it, and check out some of the different ideas for reforming the system. Going by, just read them, they're interesting. Oh, AP, you're going to have a homework assignment on it. Okay. Now, the delegates go and vote at the national party conventions. Look, since 1972, a majority of pledged and superdelegates have either been won or committed, or have committed themselves to voting for a certain candidate before the national national party conventions. What am I saying? We already knew the results in all of these. We already, there was no drama. Now, you know what? Does that mean we can never have a brokered convention? A brokered convention is when they come in, it would require 3 candidates doing well to split the votes, right? At least 3 candidates to split the votes, but you know, that can happen. But since 72 and the changes in the primary and caucus system, where most of the votes, remember how many Remember, 14% are superdelegates, which means 86 have already been won, right? Plus, these people will commit. The superdelegates will commit. If somebody calls them up, they say, who are you going to vote for? Oh, I'm going to vote for Clinton. I'm going to vote for Bernie. Look at the split in superdelegate votes between Clinton and Bernie Sanders in 2016. Almost all of these people who were party leaders, almost all of them went with who? Yes, Clinton, because she was like the established party person. Bernie was the upstart. Heaven forbid, he wasn't even formally a Democrat. He was an independent. You're like, wait a minute, how can an independent run in the Democratic primary? Well, that's the crazy thing, right? The party leaders don't want an independent running for their nomination, but it ultimately is who you get to vote for you. All right, back to National Party conventions. Here's a couple links. Open these up, and they have a little blurb on National Party conventions. I'm going to have these posted next to this video. So go and watch those. All right, so 3 things can happen that are important. I really don't have these in order. The biggest one is number 2, but this is how they popped in my mind. So one thing that happens is you can showcase rising stars by giving them a prime speaking spot. This is how the country got introduced to Obama. Chris Christie was introduced nationally. People thought he was going to do well in 2016, and then Trump clobbered him. All right, this is the big one. AP, this is the one you really need to understand, okay? First of all, right before the National Party convention, the presidential nominee who is winning and who is going to be ordained, right? Ordained means crowned. It's not really a vote, because we all know how the delegates are going to vote, right? It's going to be ordained the party candidate. He'll announce his vice presidential candidate, all right? Okay, now, oh man, they vet these people like crazy. They go through their backgrounds like crazy before they pick a VP. They don't want any skeletons. There was a guy named Eagleberger, I think his name was. He was the VP for Mondale in 1984. They found that he had, like 30 years ago, been sent to a psychiatric hospital for a week. Oh man, that came out, killed the Democrats, right? So they're going to look into the background like crazy before they pick somebody. Who is a presidential candidate? Remember, they're now the candidate. They've won the nomination. They are now going to be the only name on the general election ballot for their party, along with their vice president's name. All right? Who do you pick? And it's very simple. They're going to pick someone that's going to help them get elected. They're probably going to pick somebody from a swing state. So John F. Kennedy, who was from Massachusetts, picked LBJ, who was from Texas, for geographical balance. Trump, who many very conservative people thought really wasn't a conservative at all, picked Mike Pence, who is a super, super conservative guy, right? Obama, his main complaint was he's like a young whippersnapper with no experience. So who did he pick? He picked Biden, that had a ton of experience. John McCain, who was losing in the polls, and he said, I'm going to do something radical. I'm going to pick a woman, and I also have alienated the super hardcore right-wing base of my party, so I'm going to pick a hardcore right-wing base lovey. Sarah Palin was like very, very right-wing, all right? So, in 2016, should Clinton have picked Bernie Sanders instead of the guy who was so plain vanilla, I can't even remember his name? Would that have been a good move for her? What was Biden's thinking in picking Kamala Harris, right? There's always that tension between pleasing your base and alienating that small segment of undecided voters in the middle that might decide the election, right? Okay, number 3, each party writes a platform. Each party writes a platform, a statement of goals and policies for the next 4 years. Now, open up this one and open up this one and kind of look through them. You'll compare certain things, but you know what? The Democrats, what are they going to say about immigration? Keep immigration open, keep families together, we thrive based upon immigration. What are the Republicans going to say? No, we want immigration restricted only to like super smart people or people that own businesses, right? What about abortion, right? Democrats are going to be pro-choice, Republicans pro-life. Taxing the rich, Republicans don't tax the rich, Democrats tax the rich. This goes back to our lesson on liberal versus conservative, which you guys have already thoroughly gone through. So check these out and you'll see that it tracks, they track the liberal conservative divide on party platforms. All right, the statement of goals and policies. A platform is written every 4 years at the National Party Convention, except the Republicans did something weird this year. They just said, oh, we're just going to re-adopt the 2016 party platform without changing it. Okay, where do you hold these National Party conventions? Both parties are going to put them in a swing state, a state that they want to make, you know, that little added bonus of having a big convention with tens of thousands of people coming in and lots of news media and money being spent. They figure that might help sway an election. Before the pandemic, the Republicans were going to do theirs in North Carolina, and the Democrats surprisingly in Wisconsin, remember the state they lost by 22,000 votes to Trump? And then the pandemic happened and all that got canceled. All right. AP guys, we've had major questions on the primaries and caucuses several times recently. All right. Hey, good job, you guys. You're awesome.